Pull the mic forward.
Into the mic.
Thank
There it is. Okay, good morning, everyone. I call this to order this December the 13th, Friday, 2019, public hearing of the City of Prescott Preservation Commission. Members present at this meeting are Mary Ann Suttles, James McCarver, Richard Sprain, Michael Mirko, Mike King, and I'm Robert Burford, the chair. Staff present are Kat Moody, our Historic Preservation Specialist, Bryn Stotler, Community Development Director, Michelle Chavez is our Recording Secretary, and Kaylee Nunez is assisting, soon to take that over here as well. Councilman Good is in the front row. This is an open public hearing and is being videotaped and tape recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, local cable and/or radio stations, and may also be rebroadcast. The number of commission members present today is 6, and it will take 4 for a majority voting on any issue. All parties wishing to be heard on an issue are required to raise their hands and be recognized by the chair prior to speaking. Speakers will be expected to state their name and address for the record so that they may know who is speaking and be able to contact them at a later date as necessary. Please turn off any cell phones or electrical devices, and if you haven't already done so, please sign the attendance roster before leaving the meeting.
Turn off cell phones, right?
Thank you. So to our agenda, our first item is the approval of the minutes of the November 8th meeting. Are there any comments, additions, changes, clarifications to those minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
It's moved, has been made and seconded. Those in favor, raise their right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carries. Our next item is numbered HP 19-018. It is 232 North Granite Street. It's in the Historic Preservation District number 4, Sam Hill Warehouse. There is a request for both interior and exterior renovation of the warehouse building. And with that, I'll turn this over to Ms. Moody for her explanation of this request.
Good morning.
Yep.
So as indicated, this is a request for Sam Hill Warehouse Building. This is the iconic east end of that building. And just as I have done in the past, I'll give you just a bit of background on this structure and its relationship to Prescott. The warehouse is associated with the rail line in Prescott. Let me zoom out just a bit so we can get a little more of a view of this. This is a display we did for a kiosk associated with the trails at Watson Lake, but it does have a couple of points that are of interest and relevant to the Sam Hill Warehouse. It covers early railroad history and access into Prescott. So there were 2 rail lines that came into Prescott. Both of them came through and used the current depot site, and then eventually rail access moved west from the depot site across the trestle bridge and right by the Sam Hill Warehouse site. Those 2 rail lines were, the first rail line into Prescott came from Seligman and was the Prescott and Arizona Central Railway. And that rail line was only in use for 7 years and was particularly problematic and eventually in 1891 was replaced by the Santa Fe, Prescott, and Phoenix Railway. And you can see that came from Ash Fork, and that's the rail line known as the Peavine. And both of them converged. If you look at the close-up map here, you can see this is the airport right here. So the original rail line into Prescott came in from the west, came through, crossed what is now Willow Lake, which was not a lake at the time. This is a shot that would be underwater today. You can actually at low water see this railroad track heading into the water. You can still see the rail bed at this particular location. This is looking north from the south end of the lake, close to where you access the Dells trails there. And so that location, that picture is taken kind of around this, look right about there. And then the lines both ended up paralleling for a short ways along the section that it's now near the wastewater treatment plant and transfer station. And then the alignment is on the same, the exact alignment coming into town here. So moving into a closer view, I had a couple of maps I had already produced for a different project, but they do show the Sam Hill warehouse here. This is in 1955, so it just gives you a view of what the surrounding landscape was like. So the actual rail line moving through town is here, sweeping through. It's that dark. And this is the warehouse building, and this is Granite Street here. And so in 1955, you can see there was already the APS transformer and some of the buildings associated with the APS yard. This is a clear view from 1977. So you can see that the site does have an industrial, type of a feel to it. The zoning is, and it's still an industrial type zoning. So the building today sits just adjacent to the trestle, which this committee has reviewed. Treatment and this committee has done a courtesy review and approval for Hilton Garden Inn and the treatment for the National Register eligible trestle bridge. And so you are familiar with that component of the project. And to give you a view of what the trestle relationship is here to the actual site as we get closer in, this is the trestle location here on the east side of the site. And this is the warehouse building. Currently, there's a parking lot to the north. There's road access, both from a small driveway here and then also Granite Street. There's a gated access here into the site. And the work today we're going to be reviewing deals with some of the exterior improvements, particularly most of those taking place on the south side here associated with this patio, and then some interior changes to this building. Taking a look at what the building looks like today, or yesterday as it may have been. I'm pretty sure it hasn't changed overnight. This is the view accessing the site from the alley. This is the alley west of Granite Street. And so you can see here it's signed still as a Prescott College building. This is the west end wall. This west wall and the south wall have been stuccoed over. They were originally the native brick that the other two walls are still have exposed. One of the items we'll be looking at is this area here that's behind these juniper trees. Behind those trees, you'll find a bank of windows that were, these were added as part of a remodel when Prescott College took over the space. So this is another view that kind of shows how those windows are tucked in behind the trees there. And moving around the building, after the window bank here, you come to the entry door here on the south side, and you can see a fairly close relationship to the trestle with this structure. So this is one of the main entries to the building on the south side. And then this is a view from that door area over to the trestle and across to, you can see, you probably can't see on your screen very well, but this is actually walls going up for Hilton Garden Inn through the view of the trestle. And then this is a view of the east wall with the iconic painted sign. And you can see on the on this north wall, you have access to both the lower level through entry doors here. There's one set here and one set further to the west, and a couple of doors here to the top floor of the structure. So those entry doors were also added as part of the remodel when Prescott College took over the space. And so these are those north side entries. Some of the more original openings are still present here. And then on the west side, we have the entry, which was also modified as part of the Prescott College renovation. This includes both a stairway up from the north and then a handicap ramp coming in off that alley west of Granite. And this door configuration with the zigzag door was added as part of that Prescott College remodel, but still maintains some of the original elements from when the structure was a warehouse. So those are current views. Let's go over what's being proposed as part of this renovation. So the first thing we'll look at is this patio work to the exterior here on the south side. This is changes that are being requested for the south side patio. This is the doorway we just looked at, has a small awning roof over that. These are the current bank of windows, which we just looked at. The proposal here is to remove that window bank and put in place instead a accordion door wall style unit with a people door on one end, and then to put a small awning style roof that matches the one over this door over this door window bank here to protect that door window bank. The original old barn wood sliding doors, which are interior to the exterior wall plane, are being maintained. So this accordion door style unit would be replacing the windows, which were not original. They were part of that Prescott College remodel. The additional elements here on the south side are primarily landscaping elements. There's a screen wall, a patio, there's some lighting associated with this patio, and then planters associated with that as well. If we look at the inside proposed changes, and some of these also involve exterior changes. So moving to the west face of the building here, you can see this is the current floor plan on that upper level. You have that zigzag entry I just showed you a picture of. These interior demising walls were also associated with the conversion of the space to be Prescott College Art Gallery and classrooms. So they were non-original. The proposed change here is to remove both this zigzag entry system and these interior walls. These are the current configuration of interior walls that formed the classroom spaces. And to look at the proposal, so you'll see the ghosting here in dashed lines of what's being removed. There's a removal of zigzag entry and a transition back to a regular storefront entry here. There's the awning door change that I profiled just a moment ago, associated with access to the south patio. There's a removal of the angled door entry into this east portion of the building, and then removal of a lot of the walls associated with the classroom spaces. They are maintaining many of the walls and structures associated with the restrooms and just remodeling the restroom component. And then there's the addition of 2 of walls that help divide the space, and then the treatment on those walls is to match the sheer wall brick finish, which is already in existence here. So these 2 interior walls will match in style this wall that's already in place. Much of the work in the lower portion, or the limited work in the lower portion, is really just surface improvements. You can see, so this is existing. There's really nothing being done as far as removing walls or doing any major remodeling in the lower floor here. Looking at the elevations, this is the west entry elevation. So this is where there's that zigzag opening. Now they're proposing to go back to a regular storefront opening. Incidentally, old pictures prior to the Prescott College remodel show a storefront entry that looks pretty similar to this. So this is really taking it back to its last configuration prior to the zigzag entry. This is a view of the the south face of the building. So the trestle is here. And you can see this is the existing awning style roof. This is the change to the accordion door with a people door. And this is the matching awning style roof over that corner of the building that's being proposed. And then the landscape would be out in front of this. This is the north face, which is really not receiving any substantial changes. This is that lower level entry. And then this is a view of the overall configuration as it relates to the Hilton Garden Inn site. So we've got the hotel, you have the trestle bridge. You're familiar with the whole interface here because we've covered this, how the hotel has this walkway that interfaces with the bridge, and then the bridge is now intending, to be a continuation over to the event space that's being constructed here with Sam Hill Warehouse, and that same thing is profiled here in plan view. And we do have the developer here, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you all for any questions.
I'd like to note that George Worley, planning manager, has joined us as well. Thank you. Yeah, Mary Ann.
Yes, you turned your phone off really good.
Yeah.
Question.
Yep.
The trestle, that is just for looks? Just sort of, because I wasn't here when all that went up.
Right. So the trestle bridge is, well, it's certainly more than for looks. So the trestle bridge has been evaluated by State Historic Preservation Office to be eligible for the National Register. It's really one of the major remaining elements associated with the railroad running through Prescott. So the the idea here is you have to cross Granite Creek to get from the hotel to Sam Hill Warehouse. The trestle obviously provides the most suitable method to do that. The improvements with the trestle bridge that they're going to be doing are refinishing, so, dealing with rust, repainting of the steel. They're going to be leaving the rails in place, but they'll be redoing the decking to improve the walking service. And then these railings will be renovated to make them safe and compliant with current codes. And then there's lighting associated with the trestle as well. And they did indicate when we reviewed that the trestle itself could be used for certain limited size events where you could actually put temporary seating out on the trestle and have some kind of event, small scale event onto the bridge.
Okay, then the next question. The Sam Hill Warehouse, they're looking to use it as an event type of,
Exactly.
what's the max number they're going to look at for?
I'm going to let
Okay.
Shane answer that question if you know the answer to that.
Kat, I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Who is doing all these renovations? Is this the hotel that is taking over the warehouse?
Yes.
Okay.
The idea, I'll give you the big picture. I don't know the exact capacity of the event center. The idea is to have Sam Hill Warehouse provide the ability to have events, weddings, family reunions, professional, organization meetings, as well as conferences. So it becomes a conference and event center associated with the Hilton Garden Inn. And so the way the people who are staying at the Hilton Garden Inn will get to the conference rooms, meeting rooms, or the wedding would be to walk across the trestle and then go over to Sam Hill Warehouse.
I have a question for you, Kat. Are there any restrictions on the type of doors that, from a historical perspective, that can be put on the exterior?
The recommendations for this district and for the building itself are to maintain the original doors, which that's been done through time. Those original sliding doors that were associated with loading and unloading items off the boxcars and into the warehouse. Those have all been maintained interior to the exterior plane of the building. So the doors that have been used for infill have been just standard aluminum metal frame storefront doors, as long as the original brick openings and all the wood framing associated with the interior is maintained, then that would be in compliance with the guidelines. The space has had aluminum storefront door systems for many, many years, as it's been a restaurant, a nightclub. It's been a variety of uses through the years. Really, probably Prescott College taking control of it. It's been a little more static for this last period than it had been previous. There was quite a bit of traffic in and out of there.
So those where the zigzag door is, and then on the south side where you're going to have that sliding door, is that where the barn door entrances were originally?
Yes, that's where they were.
So those doors, the big wooden doors, barn doors, they're gone though. They've been removed, and
They're there. They're interior. So let me
I'm
give
having
it.
trouble understanding that.
This is from the 1980 Historic Structure Report. This was done in anticipation of having this building listed in the National Register in '84. And so this is a typical effort that you would do in order to document. So, and these pictures are not great. They're, Xerox reproduced. So this is those original wooden sliding doors. And the doors were a big part of what was documented in the space. And so you can see This is the view from that corner. This is where the juniper trees in the window bank had been infilled. So those doors are still there. They're interior to the building. So they would slide, and they'd slide along the interior of the brick wall, and then you'd close them, and they'd come into, to form a seal. It was, hardly a watertight seal, but a seal of sorts. So those doors are still in place. They've been preserved.
So they're not used for doors, they're just for looks, basically.
Yes, they're just preserved as part of the historic architecture of the building.
And those are staying.
Those are staying.
And there's no thought to, on the south and west side, to remove the stucco to expose the original brick?
I don't believe so. No, that's not part of what is being proposed here.
And there's no requirement to do that?
No, there's not.
A point of curiosity more than anything, the trestle, since it's in the air over the creek, what's the ownership of the?
The trestle bridge is owned by the city. It's on city property.
So this is all lease arrangements or whatever. I don't know.
I am not sure. Do you know, Tyler or Shane?
It's not owned by the city.
Name and
Hi, I'm Shane Shumway.
thanks.
I'm with people trying to do this. So, the bridge is not part of the city. What we agreed to in the development agreement was to say it remains open to public access unless there is a unless there's a private event which wants to use the space in some sort of manner. And then I wanted to answer your question about capacity of the building. That top level is about 6,000 square feet total. And then it's being divided into kind of two separate event spaces. One with about 3,000 square feet on that west side, and then the one on the other side of probably a little bit less than, around 1,500 square feet. And a 3,000 square foot event space, it depends on what type of event you have. So if it's just like sort of stadium seating, you can fit around 400. If you'd have to have circular tables and things, it becomes less, around 200 or so.
Food, is that part of this event center? Do you have a kitchen? Is it catered?
So we have a substantial kitchen in the Hilton Garden Inn itself, and we'll use that to facilitate catering in this. We're also planning on partnering with local caterers to help with that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions or?
What's the bottom floor going to be used as?
So at this point, we were originally trying to put a kitchen in this space to service the area. We couldn't do it just because of there's some low ceilings in there that make it hard. For now, it's just going to be used kind of as storage for events happening up top. We'll put tables and chairs in there.
Other comments? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think the interior of the building, to me, is the bigger issue as long as you're trying to keep as much as possible on the exterior. Because anything that, unless I'm wrong, that gets to be historic, once that inside can change, the outside not so much.
Yeah, I mean, to a limited point. In the case with this building, in the actual guidelines, there's very clear directive to maintain the old wood freight doors, to maintain the timbers interior, and any of the original components that make the warehouse really unique as an old railroad warehouse that was very important to Prescott's early history. And so those guidelines are clearly defined. Those are also listed actually in the improvements here, preserve and
Saw that.
protect specifically the original trusses, barn doors, brick, and walls and flooring. And so those are the interior elements that are critical to this structure. The exterior has changed through time, as you indicated, as Jim indicated. There has been a stucco applied to both the south and west walls, probably due to brick degradation through time. So I'm not sure if there would be a case to recommend removal of that stucco. Likely it was put on only those two walls because those two walls were in the worst shape. Pretty typical south and west facing walls in Prescott. But that's been in place for many, many years, and at this point, that wouldn't necessarily potentially be a good idea to remove that. You could do more damage to the underlying brick in trying to remove that than it would actually be worth. The exterior changes are pretty limited. As far as the zigzag door configuration and that window bank being really the only things on the actual building, as well as that awning, those are pretty minor changes and really wouldn't impact the historic status of the building. Certainly improvements to the on the south patio would improve the site, and having the building stay in use would certainly keep it in better condition than in its history where it was sitting vacant.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, on the top of page 3 in our pre-work, the interior changes will take the building back to a more open floor plan closer to the original configuration. That's a positive. The exterior will improve the appearance of the south side and will not impact the building's historic integrity. To me, that's the summary of this proposal. It has little or no effect, and it actually enhances the quality of the building, its use, and its appearance. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question on the south patio. There's a fence or something around that? Wall or-
It's not a fence. It would be a brick detailed sort of short pony wall almost, and then you'd build some iron detailing around that, and then we're also adding some steel detail that kind of mimics the bridge that goes up and over that we can add lighting to. So if somebody wants to use the exterior space kind of just as an extension of the interior space, that's kind of the intent of that space.
Is that wall going to go around the entirety of the patio?
Well, it's broken up, so
it
it'll
runs this curve, right? And then there's several facets here.
yeah. So it'll have some posts that'll be about 5 feet tall, but then it jogs down to about 2 to 3 feet tall, with some iron fencing in between it.
So you list a jogging path on the plans. Is that a city? Is that part of the trail that goes along Granite Creek? Does that extend this far?
Yes, that is.
That's-
That's the tie-in to the Greenways Trail currently. And it's signed and marked.
Right, and that's going to be open to the public.
It is, yes.
There won't be any locked fences or restrictions.
That's my understanding, is that that's being maintained.
And for events, if they have private events, the joggers can still go through there.
That's right. Yeah,
And the mountain bikers.
that's right.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that a little bit more, Jim. So the bold line is the property line of private ownership, I assume. We'll go back to that plan, Kat, please.
Oh, sorry.
And so there's public, I want to understand this public-private joint venture. That what is public? Is the railroad right-of-way public? The trestle is owned by the state, is that correct? And when I hear, we've been presented with private spaces that have obtained, I'm thinking Holiday Court at the moment, that were billed as being a connection between the parking garage and the square, nothing to do with your project at all, and it was partially sold on the fact that that would stay open and be a connection, and I don't know that I've ever walked through there other than that it has been open after it got built. What I want to know is what are the privileges of the private portion of the partnership to close off any of these public access ways at any time, or take control of the bridge either by fencing, gates, setting up tables, etc., and whether that is, maybe there are some agreements. I don't know. I just want to understand that a little bit better.
Would you like me to address that?
Yes, go for it.
So right now the bridge is pretty dilapidated, right? I mean, there's a side of it that you can't even get onto. We're paying substantial money to improve that bridge and build basically a stairwell and another bridge onto it in order to make that bridge fully accessible for the public. What we've agreed to in the DA, I mean, and that's several hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. What we've agreed to in the DA is to say, look, that remains open to public access unless a private party has reserved the space for a private event. So anyway, don't know if that answers your question or not.
I guess the part of the question is if that private event becomes continuous, then in functionality anyway, then I want to know if there are assurances that the public land stays public land.
Well, it's not public land, and if the city wanted us to make these improvements, right, I mean, we had to have an assurance that we could use the space when we needed to. So I think this is beyond the scope of what the Sam Hill structure is, but I guess what the assurance is in the DA is if somebody is not using it for a private event, and we don't imagine that there's going to be a lot of nights where it is, but I mean, I think that anybody who sees this space could look up it and say, look, it's really underutilized now, right? I mean, there was a fire that burned down part of the bridge, I don't know how many years ago, and since then it's just sat kind of in a dilapidated state. Let's improve it and make it better. And with that, we're happy to say, look, it remains open to public use. You know, anybody can go up there and use it, but if somebody wants to extend their event out to that space, they can extend it out to that space, but as soon as the event's over, it goes back to open to public. So
Makes total sense. If the property line is that bold line around that property, then I think these gardens that you're proposing are in some sort of ownership there, and it is part of the warehouse's proposal that you're bringing to us today. So I would just like some more clarity on that. I don't
Yeah,
have
it is.
I don't have your agreement in front of me or anything.
Yeah,
I don't want the agreement in front of me. I just want to have some assurances that the public-private doesn't become private.
Yeah, no, the jogging path is not our property. We have to leave that open, so we can't close the jogging path. Yeah, and what we've asked from the city is, can we make these improvements? We understand they're on city property in terms of the patio, but we've asked for a license to make these improvements just to improve the space and make it usable as an event space, right? I mean, that's really our goal. Look, it's a fantastic building.
Sure.
We really think it should be like a crown jewel of Prescott. And what are some ways in which we can reactivate it and make it more of a use space is our goal.
And this is a shot that kind of shows the entry in the relationship of that jogging path. So the jogging path is here, and you can see there is a fence, And they have a walkway with a gate interior to the fence, and then the actual access to the greenways is here on the far right of this image.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. No, I agree. I agree that the warehouse is a landmark building in this town, and appreciate your efforts there. I just want to be real clear on who's going to maintain this accessibility, not just of the pathway, but of the roadbed, trestle, etc. That's why I asked that question of who owns the trestle. Is it air rights over the over the creek, or so I appreciate your clarifying that a little bit more.
If a private party wanted to use that trestle for an event, who do they see? Who is the
They'd coordinate that through
through the hotel?
through the hotel. Yep. To answer that question, I don't foresee that, you know, how often people want to use it for an event. You know, who knows at this point, but you know, maybe 5 nights a year. I really don't know. But I do think that the bridge as well is just a great amenity, and I hope that if people want to use it for an event that they can. So,
Mr. Chairman, the, excuse me, the Hilton Gardens has come into where it was a transit park. You had a meeting and people would gather there and so forth. So now you have the gardens. Do you feel there's going to be any kind of issue from the gardens to your Sam Hill with the public-private area because it's so close to Granite Park?
so we agreed to add additional parking to help facilitate the use of Granite Creek Park. So part of the project that's not shown on this is there's improvements in the park area north of the hotel where they're going to have the farmers market. There's going to be a little playground area, things like that. So what we've done, what we would like to do, right now there's a fence that surrounds the Sam Hill building. It's kind of a chain link fence. And we'd like to take that out, make it feel a bit more inviting. And also, there's 119 parking spots down by the hotel. And the nice part about park usage is it's complementary to hotel usage. You know, typically hotel parking is, you know, they need it at night, but area parking, you typically need it at the day. So people can park here and use the creek. And also when there's, farmers markets and things like that, if we take down those fences, I think that kind of facilitates parking for the farmers market and things like that.
Okay.
Are there other comments or questions from commission members or the public? Entertain a motion of some sort.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
may. Let me see, I made a motion that we approve HP 19-018, which is the improvements requested for the interior and exterior renovation of the Sam Hill Warehouse building. And I think that's it. I request approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is made and seconded. Any other comments? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. The next item of business is HP 19-019, 120 West Gurley Street, Historic Preservation District Number 1, the Courthouse Plaza. It is a request for approval of signs on the side and rear of the Burmester of the building, known as the Burmester building, often called the Burmeister building in this town. Prescott. With that, I'll hand this back over to Ms. Moody.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people do end up calling it the Burmeister. I've been told by Elizabeth Ruffner, it's Burmister, you don't say it Burmeister. And she was very firm about that. So I've been calling it the Burmister ever since, being corrected years ago. You all are familiar with this building. We've recently done a lot of reviews associated with the paint and lighting scheme that came across into this building. And then you just most recently reviewed a comprehensive sign plan for the adjacent building, the Bashford, and they do share a facade. This is a request for 2 signs, and the intention for this building is to eventually also put a sign at the front of the awning, but this building owner is waiting to see what the Bashford sign looks like at the front of the awning so he can know what to do to match it or complement it. So at this point, the request is for the 2 signs you see depicted here. This is on the rear of the building. This is the mural that has recently gone up on the rear of the building, and the proposal is to place, the 2 signs are actually identical in size and manufacture. The difference being the signage on the back is dark letter color, and then the signage on what's being proposed on the east side of the building is light. This color is going to match the cream color of the front of the building under the approved repainting plan. And the letters themselves are 20 inches high, and the sign length is 20 feet long, all told. They are individually cut out letters and then would be mounted to the side of the building. In contrast, in this case, to the side of the building, in this case, to the rear, in contrast to the review we just did of signage on the west side of the Bashford Courts building, from everything I've been able to find out, this face of this building has never had signage. It's why it's original brick and has never been painted over. And so that, from everything I've been able to find through historic photos, has not had signage that has been sort of semi-permanent there. Somebody may have hung a banner down from the top of the building at some point. We did have a graffiti artist get on top of this building, adjacent building that houses the shoebox, and tag this wall. And so today you will see there is a section where the graffiti crew actually tried to paint out the graffiti. And so there's paint on that section of the brick wall, but it's just over the graffiti marking. So the rest of the wall is in its native brick form. And we do have the sign contractor here, so with that, I'll turn it over to you all for discussion.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
So you're comfortable with their mounting, the way they're going to mount it? It's going to fall within rules and regs?
Can you address the mounting? Is there going to be a raceway, or Stefan, can you?
Morning, everybody. Stefan Markov, 704 East Moore. Each ladder will be stud mounted to the brick walls, and we'll use a minimal amount of studs to assure that the ladder is mounted to the wall securely. And it's a very efficient way of hiding the installation.
Stefan?
I also wanted to add, excuse me.
Okay, so is this the proposal for the front?
Yeah, I met with the owner. Actually, we communicated digitally this morning. This is the proposed signage for the front of the building, which was approved by the owner about 20 minutes ago. So I wanted to present that as well.
So this sign here has been approved through the comprehensive sign plan. So you're asking, in addition to the request for the rear and the east side signage today, to get approval for this sign here.
Pardon me?
You're asking for approval for this sign as well.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And this will emulate exactly the Bashford courts with the same specs, and so we'll give it a complementary appearance.
And is this the actual font that will be used?
Yes.
Okay.
So, have you had a chance to do a study on the amount of signage, just as a point of technicality?
That's going to be covered through planning review, and no, because I just was presented that, so I'm not quite
Will it
that
need-
fast.
Will it need that? I mean,
It'll have to go through a sign permit process. So
that would be covered in that.
that would be covered in that process. So if there was an issue, say, where they were in excess of the signage that was allotted, they would either have to modify the signage or come back for a comprehensive sign plan, or, there's several options for them at that point. But I would say, because they're here today, you all can review it with the idea, with historic preservation in mind. The sign permit itself will be evaluating available square footage, and then that may trigger other actions down the road.
And as a footnote, the signage on the rear and the side of the building isn't a portion of that allowable signage.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Yeah. That's signage. That's identifying the building. The mural isn't, right? I mean, the mural is,
Or window signs, or, yeah.
yeah, right. So the same things that we've reviewed recently. Window signage is not, but this would count against their signage square footage. This would count against their signage square footage, and this. Third
I'm
sign.
just looking at procedure, whether we can addendum this onto the current request, which I think makes a lot of sense. But if there are any other signs, as per the Bashford Courts sign package, there were agreements as to where signs could go and how much on windows, et cetera, whether that would come in at a later date if more signage were requested.
And they wouldn't need a comprehensive sign package if they're within their allotted square footage. It would just be, I think Stefan has something to add here.
Yeah.
If I may add, the Burmester owner will not allow any additional signage in the front for all the tenants, so I just wanted to let you know. The Bashford Courts, they have quite an excessive approved signage for the frontage and the side, so
And if that changes by whatever means, then you'll just come back to us with that
that's correct.
package.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the sign, the size of the signs fall within the allotted size?
I am not sure because I just got,
No, the
This.
other two, the Burmester on the side and the back.
that will go for a planning review.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So, a procedural matter, do you think we can add this request to the current request?
I think you could, if you feel it's appropriate, from a historic preservation perspective, you could add it knowing, you can always make it, dependent on, approval through planning as part of the standard sign permitting application process. But that's going to happen regardless. It would be an amendment to the motion, so you would have to If you want to approve it, you would need to say with the addition of the sign on the front face of the building on the awning type of thing.
Mike, you want
No, I think that was it. I was going to say, is this premature? Not really. We can still approve this contingent on.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, that's
That way they wouldn't have
Come
to
back
come back.
right.
The only reason they would come back, like I said, would be if they were looking to get a comprehensive sign package to allow signs in excess of the allotted square footage, then they'd probably take the comprehensive sign package route, which you've just seen how that operates with the Bashford Courts building. And in that case, you would see it again.
Okay,
But
thank
if
you.
it's within the allotted square footage, it would get reviewed through the regular planning sign permit application, and then you wouldn't see it again.
Stefan?
It's, the Bashford Courts sign was presented to me just yesterday as far as the specs are concerned, so that's why I'm this early here to show the brewmaster, which is supposed to match what Bashford Courts the specs are.
Appreciate that. Other questions or comments? Would someone like to take a shot at this motion and with possible addendum to it?
I'll give it a shot. To approve HP 19-019 with the first two signs on the sides and the rear as indicated in here, and then with the addition of the front side sign that matches the Bashford Court sign. Does that work?
That's clear. Is there a second?
Contingent on approval by the other committee, the sign
Correct.
committee.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does everyone understand the motion?
Mhm.
I think it's fairly clear.
Mhm.
Okay, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thanks, Stefan. Our next item of business.
Is your nay, were you voting against it? You said nay?
No, those voting against it
Oh,
say
oh,
nay.
okay.
Sorry, no. It was unanimous for clarification there. Our next order of business is HP 19-020 Whiskey Row Alley. It also is in the Historic Preservation District Number 1, the Courthouse Plaza, and is a request for Whiskey Row Alley archway and boot signage. And I'll turn that again over to Ms. Moody.
Thank you. As stated, this request is associated with the Whiskey Row Alley Improvement Project, and we recently reviewed the mural that's located here on the northwest corner of the Whiskey Row Alley. This is improvements on both ends of the alley, and this is a rendering of the arch component. So there's two elements we're reviewing here today. One is the steel archway component, and this is a rendering. I would note that in this rendering, this looks like it's got some kind of a wooden background with a shiny steel riveted lettering. My understanding is that the actual arched alley sign will be a black painted steel with more of a metal framework. So the lettering will be individual steel lettering mounted to this kind of a triangular framework that forms the actual arched component. And then there would be steel supports on either side. And then the other element that is being considered here is a neon boot, which can't quite call it a sign, but it is a neon boot that would be a component of this archway that would provide entry to the Whiskey Row Alley. And other improvements, as you may recall, are alley cleanup, some lighting, and general improvements to the way the alley functions, as far as allowing some limited events to be held there, and also still serving as business utility access in the rear. And we do have Tyler Goodman from the city manager's office, who is involved with the Whiskey Row Alley Improvement Project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you all.
I have a couple of questions. Where do the boots go?
Okay, let's.
And also, trash trucks are going to get down through that whole schmear there?
Good morning. I'm Tyler Goodman, City Manager's Office. The boots will be mounted to one of the mounting structures there, the vertical structures, and so it'll come out over the alleyway. It'll be lit up at night. It won't flash or anything like that, but it will be lit up so that people can see it and go towards it.
It'll be in front of the two buildings?
Correct. It'll come from that rendering, it'll come towards us and go over the sidewalk.
And there are 2 signs and 2 boots, one at each end of the
Correct.
4 boots, or?
There's only 2 boots, one on each end. As far as trash trucks go, the very minimum, the lowest part of the archway is 14 feet high. So we've been working with our fire department, our public works department, all the departments, all the delivery. I mean, everybody that goes in there, and that is sufficient. As far as the other improvements, which I guess we're not really talking about, but the lighting and all that has also been looked at. So trash trucks will be able to lift the dumpsters over their head and do all the work that's necessary, so it won't impede any of the work.
And the lighting appears to be like individual bulbs on a cable support taut enough to keep it above this 14 feet.
Correct. Yeah, there'll be string lights throughout. I don't think they'll be quite as dense as that rendering, but they will go throughout most of the alley. But they will be high enough. They'll actually be 25 feet high, so as to not impede any trucks, trash trucks, any of that.
For that lift capability.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And one other last question, and I'll turn it over to others. So, like, seating, tables, artwork, sculpture is all envisioned down through here, or am I reading into this more than I should?
After holding several public meetings and speaking with staff, we're not moving forward with hosting events back there. And that would really be a kind of a market-driven thing anyways, if people wanted to have events. I imagine if there is a request to have an event back there, it'll go through our event planning process. There's a committee for that. And it just doesn't seem like it's going to be feasible with the amount of deliveries, schedules, all the conflicts that go on back there. And these renderings are pretty generous in the sense that they're putting a lot of flowers and containers and things like that. It's really not going to be that. It won't impede really any of the functionality of the alleyway.
I guess, some of the tables and seating makes for a nice situation, but if it encroaches too much, then the sidewalk gets to be less usable or a little intimidating. There's a marriage there of this public-private that I was alluding to earlier. So I'm glad that's been looked at and taken to the public. Other comments, Mayor?
I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tyler, this endeavor is the city of Prescott, correct?
Correct.
Not any of the owners.
That's
Of
correct.
businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the sign, the mural down off of Gurley was a volunteer type of thing,
It was
Roughly-
through donations, yeah.
donation. Roughly, and this has nothing to do with your signing, but I think still it needs to be brought up. What are we looking at sort of dollars for that alley?
For the total alley, let me do the quick math in my head.
Just close.
Yeah, a
And-
rough estimate. And we're still working on an accurate quote for the archway signs. We had to go back and we're going to fix some things and get a more accurate quote. So with that in mind, not really knowing that final number, it'll probably be roughly just shy of 100,000 for all of the improvements.
And again, those dollars are coming from what budget?
Various budgets. So like I mentioned, the mural was paid for through donations. The cleanup, kind of the power washing, all of the cleanup is kind of just city services departments doing that. The archway sign will come from a combination of bed tax fund as well as streets fund. The majority of it will be bed tax, with the remaining streets fund. We also received a grant from the Prescott Area Association of Realtors for $3,000 for a space making, kind of an improvement grant to improve alleyways and different things like this. So we'll be putting that probably towards the archways. And then the lighting as well is coming out of our public works budget. I believe it's also the streets fund.
And so the maintenance of taking care of that, again, is coming out of city budgets.
It
Would you
is.
power wash that alley from different reasons? There is the garbage, trash, and deliveries.
Yes.
I tend to think it's a little pricey, but what you're trying to do, and I understand that, is bring those people back downtown.
Yes, and we're trying to, a really beneficial part of this is enhance our parking garage, meaning the usage, because right now we don't have a great usage of our parking garage. And when people are exiting to come on to Whiskey Row or downtown in general, they'll come out, it'll be a dark alley. They might not feel safe or comfortable. So we're finding that there's not a whole lot of usage of the garage, especially during the week. And most weekends it doesn't fill up at all. So we'd like to enhance that. We're putting some improved lighting in the garage. We've washed it out, cleaned it out. So that's kind of an aside, but it's going to tie in and help make a public resource more valuable.
I think using that garage is a brilliant idea. Thank you.
A couple more questions. Maybe this was already stated. Is there new paving of some ilk or repair or whatever?
There's no new paving, but we will be, especially around the dumpsters, we'll be power washing, cleaning off the concrete, and the landscaping. There's very limited landscaping near the parking garage, but our recreation services facilities guys will be maintaining that, making it look prettier and much better. And we're also going to be, as part of the string lighting, we'll be lighting up a couple of trees back there in our landscaping that are near the parking garage, so it looks nicer, more accessible, more friendly.
And for Ms. Moody, is there precedent for this amplification to the buildings themselves? I mean, this is in history of the downtown or other situations?
Not in Prescott per se, but certainly in other locations. There have been alley improvements. I think, I can think of several in Santa Fe, Albuquerque, other, regional areas where, with a similar kind of fabric of historic buildings, where alleys that access certain businesses, and in the case with Whiskey Row Alley, there are businesses that only have access off of the alley, like the wine bar and a few other board and brush signage companies. So they've got, there is certainly a precedent for alley improvements. And I think we have received as a city, quite a bit of feedback about, I don't feel safe leaving the garage and going to this business at night just because it's dark, So I think certain, public safety improvements, certainly there's a huge precedence for that.
It's just a very unique situation that doesn't really speak to the preservation of existing buildings.
Well, I would say that the Historic Preservation Master Plan specifically recommends improvements and continued access using the alley to benefit Whiskey Row. So I think that would be, directly relevant to this.
Oh, I think it's fine that it's here. I just was curious. Are there other comments, or do you?
Well, Mr.
So-
Chairman, I would like to just offer something here. We are the Prescott Preservation Commission. We've been asked to make a decision on signing for a decision that's already been made. That is, there will be an alley improvement. So that's been gone through the planning and zoning. We're offering some good ideas, perhaps. We're actually learning more, and maybe our visitors here as well as the TV viewers. These kinds of things have been discussed in the past. So I propose that we limit our discussion to the signing and the proposal, not the benefits of the alley and the cleanup and the cost and the things like that. Thank you.
And if I can make a rebuttal, Mike, I appreciate that, and yes, that's exactly what we're here for. But there are constituents feeding into some of this. And I think some of the questions that are asked can make this commission feel a little more comfortable with their decision. And what a better person than the city doing that.
Thank you for your observation.
Yeah, my question was mostly for Kat. So the design of the signs fall within the purview of what's allowed in the historical district? The size and the design.
They generally do. The only precedent for this, for an archway sign in Prescott, is the old archway that was along White Spar as you entered Prescott from the south. It would have been located about where the Safeway is today. There's a Mexican restaurant on the right, and it was right there. You know, it would have been right before you got to that Mexican restaurant. It was a stone construction with a wood frame sign above. This proposed archway is not exactly the same as that. There wouldn't be room to reproduce that kind of design in this limited space. I think steel construction, limited colors, black as a primary color, that's in accordance with what we would encourage in this district. You know, so if we were looking at railings or other steel elements, we'd be looking for simple in design, not excessively ornamented, flat black as a primary color, so as not to overly draw attention to it, kind of thing. But obviously you need it to be able to be legible and readable because it is designating the space. As far as the boot,
Yeah, I do have a question for you, actually, if
Yeah.
I could. The fabricator has proposed that it be a no finish steel so that it would naturally rust.
and that would
Is
be
that appropriate?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate as well. I think that has a rustic Western, feel to it. I think that or black would be fine, but
Okay.
the rusted steel would work. And in Arizona, it actually works because it doesn't really go too far. The boot, as far as the boot is concerned, neon is encouraged in this district, so I think neon is a good choice. I know that they're creating a protective covering so as not to deal, hopefully, with neon breakage, which is a concern with using neon. Neon signs are not cheap to make. It's usually why we don't see them, because most business owners would like to have a neon sign but can't afford it. The actual subject of the boot, I mean, I'm not sure if that represents Prescott or not. I mean, it could have been any emblem, that sort of says Prescott. But neon itself as the material is encouraged in the district, but I'm not sure why the boot is the designated emblem for this.
We're gonna drop one here pretty soon.
Right, yeah.
And the neon, and the neon is neon, it's not like the Bashford Courts and LED that looks like neon, which might be better than.
We do have the boot manufacturer
It is
here.
neon, he says.
Yeah.
It is neon, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then it's got an acrylic, clear acrylic protective lens.
So I do have one question. The boot will be attached to what? This,
I think they're indicating it's going to be attached to the steel support here and come out, not out into the alley, but
so it's not going to have a separate,
It will
structure.
not. It'll be attached to the archway mounting structure.
So the design shows that the supporting columns are recessed into the alley. I can't tell how much. So if you got a boot sitting on that, you're going to see the toe of the boot from Goodwin Street. I mean, it's not going to stick out past unless the columns are going to be at the edge of the building.
Yeah, and on the Goodwin side, it's a little bit different than the Gurley side. That's pretty flush on that side, so it'll be easier to come out. This one, the buildings are offset by, I think, 1.5 feet or 2. And so we're going to be figuring out
So you see half a boot.
if we just need to have that arm longer coming
Okay.
out over the sidewalk.
The proposed lighting on the Whiskey Row Alley lettering is okay with city rules and regs or with our
it will have to comply with dark sky
Okay,
ordinance, just like any other sign or lighting.
And this group has reviewed and approved signage in the alley that extends off of buildings before, so that is somewhat of a similar situation. So,
Right.
anything else you would like to say, or are there any questions here? Thank you for your
Thank you.
discussion. So,
I move to approve the I'm sorry. I make a motion to approve the arches both north and south of the Whiskey Row Alley with the boot signage and neon.
I'll second.
motion been made
I'll second.
and seconded. Is everyone clear on the motion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Our next item of business is any sort of update of current events from anyone who wants to say so.
I have just a couple of quick announcements. So number one would be tonight is Acker Night. So if you haven't already planned to come down and participate in that, I encourage you to do that. Opening ceremony at 5, and businesses open with artists, singers, musicians, dancers, performers from 5:30 to 8:30 this evening. And then my other update is that I have, Rick has volunteered to do our follow-up photographs. So he has the list of, I think, 30 some, projects that he is out documenting. And we will be shooting for reviewing those follow-up photos at the January meeting. But worst case scenario, if he can't get everything done, it'll be in February. But that's coming at one of the next meetings. So just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you, thank you. Anything else? With that, I'll adjourn this December, Friday the 13th meeting.